In the stifling autumn of 1859, in the remote settlement of Meow Creek, Louisiana, a black boy of 7 years named Samuel Carter became the focus of one of the most terrifying and bewildering medical cases ever recorded in the antebellum American South. The only formally trained physician in an area where folk healers and midwives still dominated practice, Dr. Elizabeth Monroe, filled 2 leather-bound journals with observations concerning a child whose capacities defied every established law of human nature. Ordinary he seemed at first glance, small, frail, with dark, rarely blinking eyes and skin the color of rich Mississippi soil. Yet within that harmless exterior dwelled an intelligence that the era's science could neither classify nor comprehend. Over 7 horrifying months, 9 individuals perished under inexplicable circumstances following interactions with Samuel Carter. Each was discovered with eyes wide open, as if in their final moments they had witnessed something beyond human understanding. The boy professed to hear voices emerging from the swamp, voices that whispered secrets, disclosed hidden truths, and announced deaths to come. He knew things an illiterate child should not know, precise anatomical details of the human body, knowledge of diseases not yet manifest, intimate dreams people had never shared. Before we proceed, remember to subscribe to the channel and comment with the city you're listening from. Thank you, and let's continue. Official records were partly destroyed during the Civil War, yet Dr. Monroe's journal survived, concealed in her former home's attic for over a century. What these papers disclose about Samuel Carter tests our grasp of the human mind's limits and prompts unsettling questions about the existence of capacities science still cannot explain. This is the story of a black child whose gifts terrified white society, whose intelligence menaced the very foundations of a system built upon supposed black inferiority, and whose fate recalls the countless brilliant black minds that were silenced, concealed, or annihilated for daring to be extraordinary. Before we go further into the account of Samuel Carter and the dread that fell upon Meow Creek, if this narrative is piquing your curiosity, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell so you never miss our deep explorations into America's most obscure historical mysteries. And please tell us in the comments which state or city you're listening from. We love hearing from our community of mystery enthusiasts across the globe. Samuel Carter was born in the spring of 1852 on the Whitmore Plantation, among the largest cotton operations in Ascension Parish. His mother, Esther Carter, a house servant, had learned to read despite laws forbidding literacy among the enslaved. She would trace letters in the dirt behind the kitchen house, instructing young Samuel in whispers and stolen moments. His father, whose name appears in no official document, had been sold away before Samuel's 2nd birthday. Esther never spoke of him, though sometimes Samuel would wake at night to find his mother seated by the window, tears on her face as she gazed into the darkness beyond the slave quarters. When Samuel was 4, Esther developed a persistent cough that would not subside. The plantation owner, Robert Whitmore, refused to summon a doctor for an enslaved person, insisting she continue her work as her condition worsened. Samuel would sit beside his mother at night, his small hand clutching hers, and he would tell her things that frightened her. "Mama," he whispered one night, his voice bearing a weight no child should hold, "the sickness is in your chest like a growing flower. It has spreading roots. The voices from the swamp tell me it will take you before the cotton blooms again." Esther died 3 months later, in February 1856, coughing blood into rags Samuel desperately tried to keep clean. He was only 4, but he did not cry at her funeral. He stood silent and still as others sang spirituals over her grave in the plantation corner where black bodies were laid without markers. When asked why he did not weep, Samuel simply said, "She's still here. She talks to me now, like the others in the swamp. She says she's finally free." The other enslaved people on the Whitmore plantation began to fear the child. There was something in his eyes, they whispered, something old and knowing that should not exist in one so young. He would stare at people with an intensity that discomforted them, as if he could see through skin into soul. Old Jeremiah, who had been on the plantation longer than anyone could recall, told the others Samuel had been born with a caul over his face, a sign he could see into both worlds, the living's and the dead's. "That boy got the sight," Jeremiah warned. "He know things that ain't meant to be known by folks still walking this earth." Robert Whitmore noticed Samuel's strangeness too, but his concern differed. The boy was too clever, too observant, too articulate for an enslaved child lacking formal education. When Samuel was 5, Whitmore caught him drawing in the dirt, not childish scribbles, but detailed anatomical sketches of a human heart with labels and careful script. "Where did you learn to write, boy?" Whitmore demanded, his voice sharp with anger and suspicion. Samuel looked up with those dark, unblinking eyes and said simply, "The voices teach me. They show me things in my mind that I draw in the dirt. They say the body is just a house, and when the house breaks, the person inside has to leave." This response terrified Whitmore in a way he could not articulate. The notion that a black child, especially one born into bondage, could possess knowledge and intelligence surpassing his own challenged every tenet of racial hierarchy and natural order his society upheld. Samuel represented something perilous, proof the entire system of slavery was built upon a lie. If an enslaved child could be this brilliant, this perceptive, this extraordinary without schooling, what did that say about the claims of black inferiority justifying the institution? In the summer of 1856, when Samuel was 4.5, Robert Whitmore made a decision that would alter the boy's life forever. He sold Samuel to a slave trader passing through the parish, ridding himself of the child who unsettled him, who challenged his worldview merely by existing. Samuel was taken from the only home he had known, separated from the community that had raised him after his mother's death, and transported north along the Mississippi. He was too valuable for brutal field labor, his intelligence was too evident, his strangeness too marketable. The trader believed he could fetch a premium price for such an unusual child, perhaps to a wealthy family seeking a curiosity or a medical institution interested in studying exceptional cases. But Samuel never reached auction. During a stop in Morrow Creek, the slave trader, a man named Cyrus Blackwood, fell suddenly ill with violent convulsions. He died within hours, blood pouring from his nose and ears, his body racked with seizures the local doctor could not explain. Samuel was present, standing calmly in the boarding house room corner, watching with unblinking dark eyes as Blackwood thrashed and screamed. When questioned by authorities, Samuel said only, "He hurt children. The voices told me what he did. They said his time was finished." Investigation into Blackwood's past revealed a disturbing pattern. Over the preceding 5 years, numerous enslaved children in his custody had died under suspicious circumstances, disappearances explained as runaways, bodies found in rivers marked as drownings, sudden illnesses striking only after Blackwood had purchased a child. Samuel had somehow known things about Blackwood no one had been willing to investigate, secrets that perished with the trader in that room. With no one to claim ownership of Samuel and no legal guardian willing to assume responsibility for a paperless enslaved child, the boy found himself in an unprecedented situation. He was technically free, though that word meant little for a black child in 1856 Louisiana. Local authorities considered sending him to an orphanage for abandoned children, but such institutions refused a black child. He was too young to work, too strange for local families to adopt, and too intelligent to ignore. It was Dr. Elizabeth Monroe who finally took Samuel into her household. Elizabeth was a rarity in the antebellum South, a woman who had studied medicine in Philadelphia and returned to Louisiana to practice despite social stigma and legal barriers. She had inherited property from her father and used her independence to live by her principles, which included a quiet but firm opposition to slavery. When she heard of the strange black child present at Cyrus Blackwood's death, her medical curiosity was piqued. Upon meeting Samuel and looking into those dark, knowing eyes, she felt something unprecedented, a blend of fascination, fear, and an overwhelming sense that this child required protection from a world that would destroy him given the chance. "What is your name?" Dr. Monroe asked when the local sheriff brought Samuel to her home, relieved someone would take responsibility. Samuel looked at her with that intense, unblinking gaze and said, "Samuel Carter. My mama named me Samuel because it means, God has heard. She said I was born to hear things others couldn't, to know things others didn't. The voices started talking to me before I could talk back to them." Dr. Monroe was not superstitious. Trained in rational scientific methods, she trusted observation and evidence over folklore and fear. Yet something about Samuel challenged her commitment to pure rationalism. The boy spoke with a clarity and vocabulary impossible for an illiterate child his age. He described anatomical structures with a precision medical students struggled to achieve. And when he spoke of the voices, his demeanor held no hint of madness or confusion, only a calm acceptance of a reality others could not perceive. Dr. Monroe proposed Samuel stay in her household, not as a servant or ward, but as a subject of medical study. She would provide food, shelter, and education in exchange for his cooperation in helping her understand his unusual abilities. "I want to document what you can do," she explained. "I want to understand how your mind works, but I will not treat you as a specimen or curiosity. You will be treated with dignity and respect, and if ever you wish to leave, I will help you find another situation." Samuel considered her offer with a seriousness far beyond his years. "The voices say you're different from the others," he finally said. "They say you see people as people, not as property or problems. They say you're trying to understand things that scare most folks. I'll stay with you, Dr. Monroe. But you need to know something. The people who come near me, the people who mean harm or carry darkness in their hearts, they don't live very long. I don't kill them. I just know when death is coming for them, and sometimes the voices make sure it happens faster than it would have otherwise." This statement should have frightened Dr. Monroe away. Instead, it deepened her fascination. She had studied cases of unusual mental abilities in her training, stories of exceptional memory, instant complex calculation, children reproducing musical compositions after one hearing. But Samuel seemed different, bridging exceptional cognition and something her scientific framework could not easily categorize. He wasn't merely intelligent, he seemed to possess knowledge unattainable through normal learning. He didn't just have good intuition, he appeared to know specific details about people and events no observation could reveal. Dr. Monroe began her systematic study of Samuel Carter in August 1856, weeks after he came to live with her. She created detailed records of their daily interactions, documenting his statements, behaviors, and the uncanny accuracy of his predictions. What she discovered both amazed and terrified her. Samuel could describe human internal organs with perfect accuracy despite never seeing an anatomy text or witnessing a procedure. He could predict illness often weeks before symptoms appeared. He knew intimate details about strangers' lives, their fears, secrets, sins. "How do you know these things?" Dr. Monroe repeatedly asked, seeking a rational explanation for abilities defying natural law. Samuel's answer was always the same: "The voices tell me. They come from the swamp, from where the dead go but don't rest. They're people who died with unfinished business, with truths needing telling. They use me to speak because I was born able to hear them. My mama said it runs in our family, my grandmother had it, and her mother before her. It's a gift and a curse, Dr. Monroe. I know things I don't want to know. I see things I wish I couldn't see." The first death after Samuel came to live with Dr. Monroe occurred in September 1856. Marcus Thornton, a wealthy plantation owner from a neighboring parish, visited Morrow Creek on business and stopped by Dr. Monroe's home concerning persistent stomach pains. Samuel was present, and his reaction was immediate and visceral. He backed away, his dark eyes wide with recognition and horror combined. "You shouldn't be here," Samuel said, his voice carrying impossible authority for a small child. "The voices are screaming about you. They say you killed 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. They say you buried them where no one would look, in the old cemetery behind your plantation house where slave graves are unmarked. They say the children cry at night and their mothers still search for them." Marcus Thornton's face whitened, then reddened with rage. "How dare this slave child speak to me this way?" he shouted at Dr. Monroe. "Control your property, or I'll have him whipped for insolence." Yet his reaction exceeded mere offense at breached social protocol. Genuine fear flashed in his eyes, the look of a man whose darkest secrets had been exposed. Dr. Monroe, despite discomfort, defended Samuel. "He is not my property, Mr. Thornton. He is under my protection, and I would appreciate it if you would leave my home immediately." Thornton stormed out, his stomach pains forgotten in rage and fear. 3 days later, he was found dead in his carriage on the road home. The official cause was heart failure, but Dr. Monroe, called to examine the body, noted disturbing details. Thornton's eyes were wide open, frozen in absolute terror, his mouth was open as if screaming, and marks on his neck resembled finger impressions, though no one had been with him. When Dr. Monroe returned home and told Samuel, the boy showed no surprise. The voices said he wouldn't make it home, Samuel explained calmly. They said the children he killed were waiting for him on the road. They said it was time for him to answer for what he did. Dr. Monroe felt a chill. Samuel, she said carefully, are you telling me you somehow caused Mr. Thornton's death? The boy shook his head. I didn't cause anything, Dr. Monroe. I just knew it was going to happen. The voices don't lie about these things. When they say someone's time is finished, when they say someone has debts to pay in blood and suffering, it always comes true. I'm just the messenger. Investigation of Thornton's plantation revealed exactly what Samuel had described. In the old slave cemetery, beneath unmarked graves, authorities found remains of 3 children, 2 boys about 8 and 10, and a girl no more than 6, all showing violence unrelated to slavery's harsh realities and everything to do with a sadistic man who believed wealth and power made him untouchable. The enslaved community, finally able to speak without fear, shared stories of children disappearing over years, of Thornton's private quarters where screams were sometimes heard at night, of a monster wearing a respected gentleman's mask. Samuel had known all this without ever setting foot on Thornton's property, as if swamp voices had whispered every terrible detail into his mind. This was no coincidence or lucky guess, it was something Dr. Monroe's medical training had not prepared her to explain. The second death came in October, weeks after Thornton's mysterious demise. Reverend Silas Jameson, pastor of Morrow Creek's largest church, preached Christian charity and divine grace each Sunday while quietly profiting from the slave trade during the week. He served as an agent for several plantations, arranging sales and transfers of enslaved people, taking commissions. To his white congregation, he was a community pillar. To Morrow Creek's black population, he was something else entirely, a man using scripture to justify cruelty, using his position to enable family separation and suffering perpetuation. Samuel encountered Reverend Jameson at the general store where Dr. Monroe had taken him for supplies. The Reverend approached with his characteristic smile that never reached his eyes. Dr. Monroe, he said warmly, I see you've taken in young Samuel. What a charitable act, though I must caution you about educating these people beyond their station. God has ordained their place in society, and disturbing that natural order invites chaos. Samuel looked up with those dark, penetrating eyes and said, You don't believe in God. The voices say you stopped believing years ago after you sold a woman and her baby to different buyers. The woman killed herself, and the baby died within a month. You tell yourself it was just business, but the voices say you hear that woman crying in your dreams every night. They say you drink yourself to sleep trying to forget, but you never can. They say your time is coming soon, and you'll have to face all the people you hurt, all the families you destroyed. The change in Reverend Jameson's expression was immediate and terrifying. The warm facade dropped, revealing cold viciousness underneath. That boy is possessed by demons, he hissed at Dr. Monroe. He speaks blasphemy and lies. I will pray for his soul, but I warn you, keeping him in your home is inviting evil into your life. He left quickly, hands shaking, face pale beneath his beard. 2 weeks later, Reverend Jameson was found dead in his study, slumped over his desk with an empty laudanum bottle beside him. The official verdict was suicide, a tragedy explained as sudden mental breakdown from exhaustion and melancholy. But Dr. Monroe, examining the body at local authorities' request, noted the Reverend's eyes held the same terror she had seen in Thornton's corpse. His desk was covered with papers, letters he had been writing to various people, apparently attempting amends for past actions. One letter was addressed to a woman named Sarah, apologizing for selling her and her infant son to separate buyers 15 years earlier. The letter was unfinished, ending mid-sentence, as if Jameson had been interrupted by something so terrifying he chose death over facing it. When Dr. Monroe returned home and found Samuel sitting quietly in the parlor reading a book she had been teaching him to decipher, she didn't know what to say. The boy looked up with eyes holding centuries of sorrow and knowledge. He couldn't live with what he'd done anymore, Samuel said softly. The voices followed him everywhere. They whispered the names of all the people he'd hurt, all the families he'd broken apart. They showed him what happened to Sarah's baby, how the child died crying for his mother on a faraway plantation. The Reverend always knew it was wrong, Dr. Monroe. He just chose money and position over doing what was right. The voices don't forgive that kind of choice. Dr. Monroe sat heavily, her medical rationalism struggling against accumulating evidence. "Samuel," she said carefully, "you need to understand how dangerous this is. People are dying after encountering you. Even if you're not directly causing their deaths, the connection is becoming obvious. People in this town already fear you, see you as unnatural. If more deaths occur, I won't be able to protect you from accusations of witchcraft or demonic possession." Samuel closed his book and looked at her with profound sadness. "I know, Dr. Monroe. I've always known. That's why my people have always kept gifts like mine hidden. That's why my mama taught me to be quiet, to never let white folks see what I could really do. But sometimes the voices are so loud I can't help but speak. Sometimes the things they show me are so terrible that staying silent feels like being part of the evil. I didn't ask for this gift, but I have it. And the voices say there's a reason. I'm supposed to help bring truth to light even when the truth is painful and dangerous." The pattern continued over following months. People contacting Samuel, people carrying guilt or evil in their hearts, began dying mysteriously. Not everyone, only those the voices marked deserving judgment. A slave catcher named William Drake, known for particular cruelty pursuing runaways, suffered a fatal accident when his horse inexplicably bolted, throwing him against a tree and breaking his neck. Samuel had seen Drake in town 2 days before and told Dr. Monroe that man has killed 12 people trying to escape. He's hunted human beings like animals. The voices say he'll die the same way he killed others, sudden and violent. A woman named Catherine Bellamy, who ran a boarding house where enslaved people were temporarily housed before sale, died in her sleep with her face frozen in a silent scream. Samuel had encountered her at the market and said quietly, "She poisons food when people don't cooperate." The voices showed me 3 women who died because they refused to stop crying for their children. She'll die by poison too, not from anyone's hand, but from the fear eating her alive inside. Each death was technically explainable through natural causes or accidents, yet the pattern was unmistakable to anyone attentive. Samuel Carter knew things he shouldn't, predicted deaths with uncanny accuracy, and the deceased were invariably those who had committed terrible acts, especially cruelty toward enslaved people. It was as if Samuel served as a conduit for cosmic justice, a vessel through which his people's accumulated suffering and rage found voice and retribution. Dr. Monroe's journals from this period reveal growing confusion and fear. A scientist trained to observe and document phenomena rationally, she found Samuel challenging every framework she had for understanding the world. She conducted tests to determine if his knowledge came from heightened observation or exceptional memory, recalling and connecting details others missed. Yet evidence consistently pointed beyond natural explanation. Samuel knew things he could not have observed, described events he could not have witnessed, predicted outcomes no deduction could foresee. "The boy possesses knowledge defying conventional explanation," Dr. Monroe wrote in January 1857. "He describes internal organ structure never seen dissected. He knows disease names and symptoms without medical study. He can look at a person and tell me details about their past impossible to learn normally. Most disturbing, he predicts deaths with accuracy I can no longer dismiss as coincidence." I am forced to conclude Samuel Carter either possesses some form of extrasensory perception science has not discovered, or he is indeed in contact with something beyond our material world. As a physician and woman of science, I confront the possibility that our understanding of human consciousness and reality's nature may be fundamentally incomplete. The community's reaction to Samuel grew increasingly hostile as the death pattern became more obvious. White Morrow Creek residents whispered the boy was cursed, brought death wherever he went, that Dr. Monroe was foolish and dangerous for keeping him. The enslaved population reacted differently. Many saw Samuel as an avenging angel, a child chosen by God or ancestors to bring justice to those escaping earthly punishment. Some believed he was a prophet, others thought he might be an old spirit made flesh. But all recognized Samuel was no ordinary child. Old Jeremiah, sold away from the Whitmore plantation and now working a nearby farm, sought Samuel in February 1857. He found the boy sitting by the swamp bordering Dr. Monroe's property, staring at dark water and twisted trees. "Boy," Jeremiah said softly, I need to talk to you about what you are and what you can do." Samuel looked up with knowing eyes. "You're going to tell me about the old ways," Samuel said. "About the people who came before us, the ones who brought their spirits and power across the ocean. You're going to tell me what I have isn't strange or evil, it's part of who we are as a people." Jeremiah sat beside the child, aged joints creaking. "Your mama had it too," he said, "and her mama before her. It goes back and back to Africa, to the old ways we weren't supposed to remember. They tried to beat it out of us, make us forget our power. But some families kept it alive, passed it down in whispers and warnings. What you have, Samuel, it's called different things. Some call it the sight. Some call it walking between worlds. Some say it's the ancestor's voice speaking through the living. Whatever name you give it, it's real and dangerous, especially for a black child in a world that don't want us to have any power at all." Samuel listened intently as Jeremiah explained hidden history, traditions preserved despite attempts to erase them. He learned about African griots remembering people's stories, medicine workers seeing sickness before manifestation, wise ones communicating with the dead and bringing messages from the other side. He learned his gift was not a curse or aberration but connection to something ancient and powerful, a link to his ancestors' spiritual traditions that survived the Middle Passage, slavery, everything designed to destroy his people's soul. "But you need to be careful, boy," Jeremiah warned. "White folks are already scared of you. They're scared because you represent everything they tell themselves ain't true, that we're just as smart, just as capable, just as human. Now you're showing them something more frightening. Maybe we have gifts and abilities they don't understand and can't control. They'll come for you eventually, Samuel. They always come for those showing too much power, knowledge, light. You need to learn when to hide what you can do, when to play small so they don't destroy you." Samuel nodded slowly, understanding the wisdom. But even as he listened, he knew hiding would not be possible much longer. The voices grew louder, more insistent. They showed him coming things, terrible things shaking his world's foundations. They showed him a war tearing the country apart, rivers of blood, fields of dead. They showed him slavery's end but also emancipation's long, brutal aftermath. They showed him his own future, short, bright, tragic, a candle burning intensely before being extinguished by irresistible forces. The turning point came in March 1857 when Samuel encountered a man challenging everything he thought about his gifts and their purpose. This man differed from others. He didn't carry the same guilt or evil marking previous victims. His name was Benjamin Cole, a slave trader recently arriving in Morrow Creek with 20 enslaved people for auction. But Benjamin Cole was also slowly, painfully dying of cancer eating his insides. Samuel met Cole at Dr. Monroe's home when the slave trader sought treatment for his mysterious ailment. The moment Samuel saw him, voices erupted in a cacophony unlike any before. They weren't condemning Cole or calling for his death. Instead, they screamed a warning. "He's like you," they whispered urgently. "He has the gift too, but uses it differently. He uses it to find the weakest, most vulnerable, those bringing highest price. He can see into souls, but uses that vision for profit and cruelty. He's what you could become if you choose the wrong path." Dr. Monroe noticed Samuel's distress immediately. The boy paled, his whole body trembling as if in fever's grip. "Samuel, what's wrong?" she asked, concerned. Samuel couldn't answer. His mind overwhelmed with realization he was not unique, that his gift could exist in others, could be used for purposes perverting its original meaning. Benjamin Cole had been born with the same ability to see beyond surface, to know hidden things about people. But instead of using that gift for justice or truth, Cole had weaponized it to perfect human trafficking. He could look at an enslaved person and know exactly what weaknesses to exploit, what prices to demand, what lies to tell for maximum profit. Benjamin Cole looked at Samuel with eyes holding terrible recognition. Well, he said softly, voice mixing surprise and dark amusement. "I've heard stories about you, boy, the child knowing things he shouldn't, predicting deaths, speaking truths frightening good Christian folk. I didn't believe tales until now, but I see it in you, that same spark I see in my mirror. You're like me, Samuel Carter. We're both cursed or blessed, depending on perspective, to see the world as it really is, stripped of pretty lies people tell themselves. Samuel found his voice, though hoarse and strained. "I'm nothing like you," he said. "The voices told me what you do. You take already broken people and break them further. You look into souls and find exact words making them give up hope. You're everything the gift was never supposed to be used for." Cole laughed, a harsh sound holding no joy. "Listen to yourself, boy. The gift was never supposed to be anything. It just is. You use it your way, passing judgment on people you've decided are evil, letting your voices whisper condemnations until those people die in convenient accidents. I use it my way, making a living in a world that doesn't care about should or shouldn't, only what works and what doesn't. Don't pretend you're better than me just because you've convinced yourself you're on righteousness' side." This confrontation shook Samuel to his core. Was Cole right? Was his gift merely a tool usable for any purpose, good or evil, depending on wielder's intentions? Were the voices guiding him truly sources of divine or ancestral justice? Or were they just reflections of his own anger and pain, his own desire to see those hurting his people suffer consequences? For the first time since his mother's death, Samuel felt genuine doubt about his purpose and path. Dr. Monroe sent Cole away with a pain tincture and grim prognosis. Cancer would kill him within 6 months, possibly sooner. After the slave trader left, she sat with Samuel, waiting for him to speak. The boy quieted a long time, staring out the window at the swamp beyond. Finally, he said, "What if I'm wrong about everything, Dr. Monroe? What if the voices aren't messages from the dead or ancestors? What if they're just my own mind twisted by anger and grief, creating justifications for wanting people to suffer?" Dr. Monroe chose words carefully. "Samuel, I can't tell you whether your voices are real as you believe. I lack knowledge or wisdom for that determination. But I can tell you what I've observed. The information you provide is accurate in ways exceeding any natural explanation I conceive. You've revealed truths about people leading to discovery of crimes otherwise remaining hidden. People dying after encountering you were, without exception, individuals causing tremendous suffering to others. Whether that's justice or vengeance, divine intervention, or unknown psychological phenomenon, I cannot say. But I believe your intentions matter. Benjamin Cole uses his gifts, whatever they may be, to cause harm. You use yours to expose harm already done. That distinction may not satisfy philosophical inquiry, but it matters in human existence's practical reality." Samuel took some comfort from Dr. Monroe's words, but doubt planted by Benjamin Cole continued growing. Over following weeks, he became more withdrawn, less willing to speak about what voices told him. He still heard them, still saw visions they sent, but began questioning whether acting on that information was truly justice or merely his own desire for revenge against a world taking everything from him. Benjamin Cole died in May 1857, his body finally succumbing to consuming cancer. But before dying, he did something changing Samuel's life irrevocably. He confessed, not to a priest or law enforcement, but to Dr. Monroe in a letter arriving 3 days after his death. In it, Cole described excruciating detail methods used to break traffic people's spirits. He listed dozens of names of individuals sold, including where sent and what happened. He described psychological torture inflicted, how he used unnatural perception to find each person's deepest vulnerability and exploit it until they became compliant, defeated, easier to sell. At letter's end, he wrote, "That boy, Samuel Carter, saw what I was the moment we met. I spent my life believing I used my gift wisely, making best of an ugly world. But looking into that child's eyes, I saw myself reflected and realized I had become a monster. The cancer eating my body is nothing compared to rot consuming my soul. Tell the boy he was right. Tell him he's better than me. Tell him never to become what I became, no matter how tempting using his power for personal gain. And give enclosed documents to Northern abolitionists. Maybe some people I destroyed can be found and reunited with families. It won't redeem me, but maybe it will count for something in whatever judgment awaits me." Documents Cole included contained detailed records of 20 years of slave trading transactions, names, ages, descriptions, sale prices, destination plantations, everything an abolitionist network needed to potentially locate and track enslaved people separated from families. Dr. Monroe, recognizing the document's value and danger, carefully copied them and sent copies to Northern contacts, people working with the Underground Railroad and other networks helping enslaved people escape to freedom. Samuel's reaction to Cole's confession was complex. On one hand, it validated his initial assessment and confirmed his gift had not misled him. On the other, it raised troubling questions about redemption and judgment's nature. Cole had done terrible things, but his final act showed genuine remorse and attempt to partially right wrongs. Did that count? Did voices consider such late repentance meaningful? If Cole had lived long enough to act on regrets, would he have been spared judgment befalling others showing no remorse? These questions occupied Samuel's thoughts through summer 1857 as he continued his strange life in Dr. Monroe's household. She taught him to read and write with increasing sophistication, exposing him to medicine, philosophy, and science books. He absorbed information with remarkable speed, his mind hungry for knowledge helping him understand the world and his place. But even as education progressed, voices continued relentless communication, showing him visions of events near and far, past and future. In August 1857, Samuel began experiencing visions different from any before. Instead of showing individual people and secrets, voices showed masses of humanity in motion, armies marching, cities burning, rivers running red with blood. He saw black men in Union blue uniforms fighting and dying for freedom coming at almost unbearable cost. He saw Lincoln signing documents changing millions' legal status. He saw liberation's joy followed by Reconstruction's terror and new oppression forms rising to maintain white supremacy through violence and intimidation. He saw generations stretching forward, each fighting same battles in different forms, each pushing incrementally toward justice always just out of reach. These visions exhausted Samuel in ways previous experiences had not. He began losing weight, sleeping poorly, waking at night with screams bringing Dr. Monroe running. "They're showing me too much," he told her during one midnight episode. "They're showing me what's coming, not just for individuals, but for all of us. There's a war coming, Dr. Monroe. A war tearing this country apart. And even when it's over, even when slavery ends, hatred and violence won't stop. They'll find new ways to keep us in chains. They'll create new laws and systems maintaining same cruelty under different names. And it will go on for generations, maybe forever." Dr. Monroe held the trembling boy, feeling helpless facing visions she couldn't see and horrors she couldn't prevent. "Samuel," she said softly, "you can't carry all that suffering's weight. You can't hold past and future pain all at once. You're just a child. Even with extraordinary gifts, you're still just a child." But Samuel shook his head. "I stopped being just a child when my mama died and voices started talking. I stopped being just a child when I realized I could see into souls and know secrets. The voices don't care I'm young, Dr. Monroe. They use me because I'm available, because I was born able to hear them. But sometimes I wish I was deaf to them. Sometimes I wish I was just a normal boy knowing nothing except how to play and laugh and be free from all this knowledge." The ninth and final death occurring during Samuel's time in Morrow Creek happened in September 1857, the death forcing Dr. Monroe to make an impossible choice about the boy's future. The victim was Judge Albert Crane, among the parish's most powerful men, whose legal decisions had upheld slavery through decades of carefully reasoned opinions treating human beings as property. Crane was known for particular harshness in cases involving enslaved people accused of crimes. His verdicts were swift, sentences brutal, justifications rooted in philosophy denying black people's full humanity. Samuel encountered Judge Crane at a social gathering Dr. Monroe attended, bringing the boy despite social impropriety of bringing a black child to a white social event. She had been invited for medical expertise and brought Samuel because increasingly reluctant to leave him alone. The moment Samuel saw Judge Crane, his face paled and body rigid. Voices erupted with almost physical intensity, their message so loud and insistent Samuel couldn't help speaking aloud. "You sentenced a man to death for trying to protect his daughter," Samuel said, voice carrying across sudden gathering silence. "His name was Thomas. He killed the overseer raping his 15-year-old daughter. You said, a slave has no right to defend family. Property cannot commit justifiable homicide against owners. You watched him hang and felt nothing. You've sent 47 people to death by hanging, 213 to brutal whipping, countless others sold away from families as punishment. The voices say every single one of those people is waiting for you. They say your judgment is coming, and it will be as merciless as judgments you handed down. Reaction was immediate and violent. Judge Crane, face purple with rage, demanded Samuel removed and punished for insolence. Several men moved toward the boy with clear intent to inflict immediate physical harm. Dr. Monroe positioned herself between Samuel and angry mob, voice sharp and commanding. This child is under my protection and speaks from mental disturbance. He means no harm and deserves compassion, not violence. But Judge Crane was not satisfied. That boy has pronounced a death sentence on me based on lies and delusions. He will be taken into custody and punished according to law. No black child will threaten a sitting judge and escape consequences. Dr. Monroe knew she had only moments to act. She gathered Samuel quickly and left, ignoring shouts and threats following. They returned home, and she began immediate arrangements. Samuel, she said urgently, you need to leave Morrow Creek tonight. Judge Crane will send men to arrest you, possibly lynch you without legal process pretense. I have northern contacts helping you reach safety, but you must leave immediately. Samuel looked at her with ancient eyes and said quietly, it doesn't matter if I leave, Dr. Monroe. The judge will die within 3 days regardless of where I am. The voices have already pronounced judgment. His death is already set in motion. But you're right, I should leave, not to save him, but to save you from implication in what's coming. That night, Dr. Monroe arranged for trusted allies to take Samuel along a secret route toward freedom. She gave him documents claiming he was a free black child traveling with permission, though both knew such papers provided minimal protection. She gave him what money she could spare and letters of introduction to northern abolitionists who might help. And she held him close a moment, this extraordinary child changing her understanding of reality itself. Will I ever see you again? She asked. Samuel smiled sadly. The voices show me many possible futures, Dr. Monroe. In some we meet again. In others, we don't. But in all, I remember you as the one person seeing me as human first, exceptional second. You treated me with dignity when world wanted to treat me as either slave or monster. I'll carry that wherever I go. Samuel Carter disappeared into the night, guided by Underground Railroad conductors risking everything to help enslaved people and free black children escape to safety. Dr. Monroe never saw him again, though she spent her life wondering what became of the extraordinary boy, briefly illuminating her understanding of human potential. 3 days after Samuel's departure, Judge Albert Crane was found dead in his chambers. He had apparently suffered a massive stroke, discovered slumped over legal documents reviewed. But those preparing his body reported strange details, eyes wide open, frozen in absolute terror, mouth open in silent scream. Witnesses claimed moments before death, people in courthouse heard what sounded like many voices speaking at once, though none could make out words. Enslaved people in the parish whispered ghosts of all people Crane condemned had come to collect their debt, had surrounded him in final moments and shown him faces of everyone destroyed. Whether true or folklore born from desperate need for justice, none could say with certainty. Dr. Elizabeth Monroe continued medical practice in Morrow Creek until Civil War outbreak in 1861. When Union forces occupied Louisiana in 1862, she volunteered physician services treating wounded soldiers, Union and Confederate, making no distinction. In journals from this period, she wrote extensively about Samuel, trying to make sense of what witnessed and documented during their time. She developed a theory Samuel represented an evolutionary adaptation, a survival mechanism developed by an oppressed people needing ways to identify threats and protect themselves in a world designed to destroy them. But even formulating scientific explanations, she could not fully dismiss possibility Samuel's gifts were exactly what he claimed, communications from the dead, messages from ancestors refusing to let suffering be forgotten. Dr. Monroe died in 1891, but before death arranged for journals donated to a Philadelphia medical college with specific instructions sealed for 50 years. She did not want Samuel hunted or studied as curiosity, but believed future generations might benefit from careful documentation compiled. Those journals opened in 1941 and studied by researchers trying to understand human perception and consciousness limits. The Samuel Carter case became subject of academic papers in psychology, neurology, even parapsychology. But journals raised more questions than answered, providing meticulous documentation of extraordinary events without offering definitive explanation for how possible. As for Samuel Carter himself, his story does not end with Morrow Creek departure. Reports of a black boy with uncanny abilities appeared in northern states late 1850s, a Pennsylvania child diagnosing illnesses with remarkable accuracy despite no medical training, a Massachusetts young man helping locate murder victims' bodies claiming to hear voices calling for justice, an Ohio teenager working with Underground Railroad seeming to know which conductors trustworthy and which routes compromised. Whether same person or Samuel's gifts less unique than Dr. Monroe believed remains unknown. During Civil War, stories emerged of a black scout working with Union forces predicting Confederate troop movements and identifying spies with supernatural accuracy. Some accounts describe a young man standing on battlefields after fighting ended, tears streaming, speaking to dead as if seeing and hearing them. Soldiers reported this young man seeming to take messages from dying, recording final words, learning names so families notified. Several Union officers mentioned in correspondence a remarkable black man named Samuel possessing intelligence and abilities exceeding anything previously encountered. But official military records from period incomplete and often contradictory. After war ended and Reconstruction began, Samuel reports became less frequent but more disturbing. He appeared where racial violence occurred, lynchings, massacres, riots where white mobs attacked black communities. Survivors of these atrocities sometimes mentioned a thin black man with ancient eyes appearing afterward documenting what happened, recording dead's names, bearing witness to horrors official historical record would try erasing or minimizing. Some claimed he could identify violence perpetrators even hiding behind masks and sheets, that he spoke murderers' names with absolute certainty, names swamp voices revealed. One most detailed account comes from Colfax, Louisiana, where in 1873 a white mob massacred between 60 and 150 black men in one of worst racial violence instances in American history. A survivor named Isaiah Freeman later testified after massacre, a man calling himself Samuel came to site and spent hours walking among dead, speaking as if they could hear. He was taking down their names, Freeman recalled in a 1920 interview. He said voices told him each name, told him who they had been in life, who families were. He said he was making a record that couldn't be destroyed or forgotten, a record lasting longer than any written document. I asked how he could stand among so much death. And he said, "I've been walking among dead since I was 4 years old. They're no more frightening than living. Often they're more honest." Last confirmed sighting of someone possibly Samuel Carter occurred in 1899 in Wilmington, North Carolina, aftermath of a coup d'etat where white supremacists overthrew legitimately elected local government and murdered dozens of black citizens. A black journalist named Alexander Manley, forced to flee city, wrote about encountering a man claiming to document massacre for a record outlasting lies white folks tell about what really happened here. According to Manley's account, this man late 40s, thin and worn, with eyes looking like they had seen every terrible thing happening to our people and remembered all of it. When Manley asked his name, he replied, "I've been called many names. Samuel is the one my mother gave me. It means God has heard." I hope she was right about that. After 1899, no further documented Samuel Carter sightings, though legend persisted in black communities throughout South. He became a folk figure, a ghost story parents told children, sometimes as warning, be good or Samuel Carter will know your secrets, sometimes as hope source, no matter what they do to us, Samuel Carter writes it all down. And one day there will be a reckoning. Some claimed he had died, finally released from burden of hearing never-stopping voices. Others insisted he found way to silence voices and live normal life under new identity. Still others believed he's still out there somewhere, still walking among dead, still recording names and stories of black people whose suffering might otherwise be forgotten. Dr. Monroe's journals end with a reflection written shortly before death capturing both mystery and meaning of Samuel Carter's story. I spent years trying to understand Samuel scientifically, trying to find rational explanation for abilities defying rational explanation. But perhaps I asked wrong questions. Perhaps point was never to understand how he did what he did, but rather recognize what his existence meant. Samuel Carter was proof black people possessed capabilities and intelligence his time's society refused acknowledging. He was proof oppression and suffering do not destroy human spirit but sometimes refine it into something extraordinary. He was proof justice, even when denied by human institutions, finds ways asserting itself through unexpected channels. Whether his voice is real or metaphorical, whether his gift supernatural or simply human potential expression we don't yet understand, result was same, truths revealed, crimes exposed, and a child who should have been crushed by slavery's weight instead became a force for accountability and remembrance. That matters more than any scientific explanation I could have provided. The Samuel Carter story challenges us confronting uncomfortable questions about genius, about gifts exceeding normal human capacity, and about how society responds when those gifts manifest in people designated inferior. How many other Samuel Carters existed in American slavery centuries? Brilliant minds, extraordinary abilities, children with gifts changing the world, destroyed before fully manifesting potential. How many voices silenced? How many gifts crushed? How many possibilities erased by a system designed to deny an entire people's full humanity? Samuel Carter was exceptional, but conditions shaping him were not. Every black child born into slavery faced same existential threat, same basic humanity denial, same violent potential suppression. Samuel survived and found ways using gifts because a few people, his mother, Dr. Monroe, Underground Railroad conductors, chose seeing him as human first and protected when could. But for every Samuel Carter finding protection, thousands others did not. Their stories lost, names forgotten, gifts never realized because born into a system designed to destroy exactly what made them extraordinary. The Samuel Carter mystery ultimately is not about whether voice is real or whether truly possessed supernatural abilities. The mystery is about what means to be human, to possess gifts, intelligence, potential in a world denying right existing as full person. The mystery is about how genius survives oppression, how truth finds voice even when speaking truth dangerous, how justice asserts itself even when every official institution denies it. The mystery is about countless brilliant black minds existing in slavery's darkness and centuries following, minds changing communities quietly even when couldn't change larger world. Samuel Carter may have heard swamp voices. Or he may simply have been so attuned to his people's suffering that he could sense injustice way others sense weather changes. Either way, he represented something terrifying: white supremacy architects, proof entire racial hierarchy edifice built on lies. His intelligence, his gifts, his very existence challenged every slavery and oppression justification. That's why his story buried, why official records destroyed or hidden, why even Dr. Monroe's detailed documentation sealed away decades. Samuel Carter dangerous not because of how people died around him, but because of what proved by living, that black humanity, black intelligence, black potential could not be erased, no matter how brutal system designed accomplishing that erasure. What do you think of this story? Do you believe Samuel Carter truly heard dead voices? Or was his gift something else entirely, a human perception form we still don't fully understand? Have you heard family stories about ancestors seeming to know things shouldn't have known, who had gifts defying explanation? Leave comment below and let us know thoughts about this remarkable chapter in Black American history. If you found this story powerful and want to hear more untold stories of extraordinary black people changing history in ways never properly recognized, subscribe to our channel. Hit that notification bell and share this video with someone needing to know our ancestors' brilliant, powerful, extraordinary even in darkest circumstances. Remember, stories they tried erasing are stories we must tell loudest, voices they tried silencing are voices we must amplify, lives they tried reducing to property and statistics were lives full of intelligence, gifts, and humanity changing world even when world refused acknowledging it. See you next video where we continue uncovering our people's hidden history.